This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon to all. I welcome you all for the last day training session on design of electronic circuits for electrical engineers. My special welcome to the speaker, today's speaker, Mr. Ganesh Eskanda. So now I'm handing over the session to him. Sir?
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Vanakkam. The last time we met, we spoke about XOR and rotate instructions. We looked at how rotate will work eventually. As a precursor to what we want to do today, I want like to go back to some basic recap of what we have done so far. I will to start that I have a quiz. You can hopefully see my question. It's on menti.com with the ID 13, 56 and 40. I would start a timer for a minute. I would please open the link and answer this question. The question is, we looked at an instruction called as decrement, and we are going to decrement a value a. So when the value of a is 0, 0 now, and when you decrement it by 1, what will happen is the question. So the timer starts now. You can see the timer ticking. Please go there and try to answer this. I think this will help us to reinforce the concepts of number systems which we learnt on the previous class. Is the voting closed already? Oh no, yeah, okay, that's good. Okay. Please reflect on what we have looked at. We looked at an instruction called as inc, which will do an increment of the current value. The question now is on a value on an instruction called as decrement, which we hope will decrement the value of a by 1. Yes. Okay, I have 6 responses. Okay, and that's 2 minutes past. So I still think that the response rate is very less. So the more you respond, the more reason I get to explain on why someone has answered like that and why it is wrong and things like that. I will use this to explain that this is wrong. If you decrement it by, you are going to decrement, so subtracting, that's decrement is as good as a subtraction. So subtraction will not give you a number which is bigger than the previous one. So that's why this is wrong. There is nothing called as a negative hexadecimal number as such. Hexadecimal doesn't support the concept of negation. So it uses 2's complement to represent the number system. So that's again going back to number system. So I would, we can spend some time looking at it. And thank God no one has answered this. So this is also wrong, which means that this is right. So there are 2 points which you have to wonder about. So even if you have a rollover between, so this is like an counter which can count only till 1 to 10. So if you it's like a circular loop. All the buffers, all the registers are like circular loops. So if you do something with that, it'll go back to the start and start again. So like if you count from 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, and then you don't know the next number, you will start going back to 0. So 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. So that's how it goes. So similarly, since this is an 8-bit number, the max value is ff, the min value is 0 0. So and then when it rolls over, it goes back to all the bits set. So that's what the decrement instruction will do. And we have also looked at the decrement will not touch the carry flag, so the carry flag value will be 0. So I think the answer is ff and 0. So we'll use a calculator to prove this again. Okay, a calculator is opening on my machine, and that's taking so much time. I'll clear the drawings in the meantime, so we get to look at a clear calculator. So 2's complement is an important concept on number system when you want to represent a negative number. So negative number means that if you look at current, the current goes positive and negative. So the current has two sides. Let's say we look at voltage level on an on a 230 volt sine wave. It goes both on positive and negative sides. So it is very important for us to represent negative number. So if you sample a current on an on which is through a motor or anything like that, the current can go on both the sides. So we should have a way to represent a negative number. So I will do -1 here. So 0 -1. You can see that -1 is represented by FFFFFF. Let's not look at octal now. Bin is the equivalent of that. So uh, so so this is how -1 is represented on the 2's complement number system. So there is nothing, there is no number called as 0x -1. That's what I wanted to prove with this. So so a decrement instruction subtracts by 1. So we did 0 -1. So then it becomes um, all f's. So here there is 64-bit, because this does its operation on a 64-bit. But if you consider an 8-bit, then it becomes just 2f. So that's the concept here. I will go to the next question, which is again a recap of what we did on the previous class. This is an XR instruction of A, R0, and after the XR, the value of A becomes 0. So the question is, what is the value of A and R0 at this moment? You can go to the same link and answer that. As usual, I'll start a timer. We'll wait for 2 minutes before we go ahead and do something else. Okay. Thank you. 2 people have answered. Okay, there is 3 answers. Okay, that's good. A lot of people are answering. I already have 6 answers, so I think the voting is closed. I'll reopen it for another minute or so. Yeah, that's 7 so far. That's good. I'll wait for a minute. So we did it back in the last class. We looked at what can be, what can happen, what can an XOR do, and why an XOR is a very significant way to clear a register and things like that. So, and this will be a good recap. So if you remember, you can actually do an A XOR with A XOR A manually. If you know the formula for what an XOR gate will do, it's A bar B plus A B bar. So you will see that if both A and B are the same, you can do some optimizations about it and figure out what is happening, what is the value of an XOR between two operands which are having the same value. Okay, and again, so it looks like only 7 people are active in the class out of 50, which is so sad. Nevertheless, I think at least for those 7, we should proceed and not wait for the other. Okay, so this is wrong. This is wrong primarily because if the two values are unequal, then there is no guarantee that A will become 0, and A equal to or not is one condition in which an XOR of that value can become 0. There are other conditions in which XOR can also become 0, like if both A is 0 and B is and R naught is 0, then also this can repeat, but I think this is one of the valued conditions. And this is again tricky because A not equal to 0 can still work if A is 0 and R naught is FF as well. So I think if you make it 0 and FF complement, no, I don't think it can be like that. So I think A not equal to R naught is not a very arriving at a very distinct proof for that might be tough. But I think I just wanted to give this as an option to confuse on A equal to R naught. So so with that, if you are able to track that A equal to R naught means 0, then I'm okay with it. So thanks for the recap. I expect more students to go coming forward and answering the questions, which will kind of make the class really interesting. And okay, I saw something on the chat window. Okay, yeah, thanks, ma'am. And the other thing is that if you answer wrong, then that gives me a reason to go back and explain why the way you thought it is not the way it actually works. So, okay, I'll go back to jumps. We are going to do jump instructions now. So, jump instruction tries to alter the way in which the program counter flows. Basically, program counter increments one by one. So it's like I'll write to a simple notepad file which will be like step 1 do this, step 2 do this, step 3 if do this, if it doesn't work go to step 1 again. So this is how typically a jump instruction, and this is a typical case of a jump instruction. So we say I couldn't think of anything interesting now, so I just made it generic, like do this. So we did something here, and then we did something again here, and then we again did something here. So then we do a check. If this is not the same as that, something like that, then you go back to step 1 again. So if you want to write something like that in the code, so you can write, if you have a label for this line 1, move A comma or not, line 2, add or do something XRL A comma R naught. Line 3, compare and jump if not equal. Line 1. So you get a number and move that to A naught. Move whatever is in R naught to A, and then you XOR A with R naught, and then you compare and jump if not equal. It will go to this line. Okay, so I don't think compare and jump were not equal to works like that. I will go to some basic instruction. Okay, compare and jump if not equal requires two operand. It requires two operands, and then only it will compare and jump if they are not equal. So it will be like a compare and jump not equal a comma, let's say we do 35. So we compare. Okay, if they are not equal, then you go to line 1. So this is how a compare and jump if not equal instruction will work. I got carried away with another instruction like jump if carry, jump if 0, and things like that. We will look at that. So jump 0, jump non-zero. There are some instruction like that. If a 0 flag is set, it will jump. If a 0 flag is not set, it will jump, and things like that. So please forget what I have said in the past minute or so, and then we'll get back to this current state where we compare and jump two values, let's say A and some data, and if both of them are equal, then we do something. Then we go and execute line 4. I'll do again move. So if A is equal to 35, compare A, if I'll compare A and 35, if both of them are not equal, then I'll go and execute line 1. If both of them are equal, I'll go and execute line 4. So that's a way in which I can make a branch. So this is hopefully you would have studied this instruction. If A equal to 5, do this. Else do this. Okay, I'll probably call that as do that. Oh man. Okay, so if A equal to 5, do this. If A is not equal to 5, do that. So this is very similar to that instruction. Compare and jump if not equal. If A is not equal to 35, go to line 1. So if I map it here, then this is line 1. Then this is line 4. If I have written not equal to here, then it would have inverted. So that's basically the concept of how compare and jump if not equal works. The only advantage is that when you compare, you can also get to know whether the operand is less than or greater based upon the carry flag. So if it is lesser, the carry flag will be set. Operand 1 is lesser than operand 2, carry flag will be set, or else it will be cleared. So that's another information which we could get from it. So I have a very similar code here. So I have something like compare and jump not equal or not, comma, and 35. And then if they are not equal, then it would have jumped to halt. But as you can see, it has come to the next line. So it has come to the next line of execution. It has come to address 14. There is no address 12 and 13 because this compare jump is not equal is a 3-byte instruction. So it takes all those 3 bytes to refer to that. So now it will go. Now it has gone to line 14, and the halt is not. It hasn't gone to halt, which means the R naught is equal to 35. So if R is not equal to 35, then it would have gone to halt. So it wouldn't have executed this instruction 14. So I think that was the concept. I think I'll have a quiz for that, so we can look at that and see if we are able to make some understanding out of that. Okay, I'll use a very basic quiz on jump. Okay, I have pretty much the same question. You can go to 4998 and 33. The question is compare and jump not equal or not 35 halt, and then the next instruction is jump not no carry to save. So now the code execution is at the next line. So the question is find out what is the value of or not. I'll start a timer so that we don't waste too much time on expecting answers. We'll wait for 2 minutes and see how much answers comes up, and then take it from there. Oh, no answers. I think if you hover over the value, you will see the question. If you hover over the question, you will see the code which you have to find out. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for answering. Wow. Thank you. That's good. That's at least 6 people now. I will again start the timer so that we'll wait for okay, there's another 55 seconds. If you hover over that, you will get the question. So, yeah, we can try executing that in the meantime. Okay, move or not, comma 35. Compare and jump not equal or not, comma 35. Comma halt on halt. Okay, I think we would have run out of time. Okay, so I have got 9 responses, which is slightly better than what we had the last time. I will explain the answers and then we'll take it and then we'll look at a quick demo of that as well. So it's a compare and jump if not equal. So if the value is 35, it wouldn't have if it is not equal, it would have gone to somewhere else. It would have gone to halt. So so if it means that it is at the next instruction, then it means that the value at R0 is 35 H. H is hexadecimal. So if they are not equal, then it would have jumped to the place where there is halt. But now in the code, it hasn't jumped to the place where it is halt. It is at a different place. So I'll show you a demo of it. So all those people who have answered that it's any number other than 35, then it would have jumped. But here you can see that it hasn't jumped and it has just gone to the next instruction. I'll show you a quick demo of it as well. So I wrote this piece of code. So I'm running it. So I'm stepping. So you will see that I have moved R0 35 and I'm going to do R0 and 35. So if R0 and 35 are equal now, so if they are equal, then it wouldn't jump to halt. It will go to no halt. In no halt, what I have done is I have asked it to jump back to no halt. So it will stay at line 5 forever. So if it stays at line 5 forever, then you can see that it is staying at line 5 forever, which means that it found that R0 and the 35 is equal, and it chose to stay at line 5 itself because it has come to line 5, and then I have put a trap and held it here. Now I will I'll compare it with 36. I'm assembling and then I step. So now I'm comparing R0, which is 35, to an immediate value called as 36. So if that is the case, they are not equal, then it will go to halt. In halt, I have put a trap and made it circle around halt itself. So you will see that it is, I will step it. It has gone to line 7 and it didn't go to line 5. So that's what I wanted to show with that quiz as well. So whoever who thinks that it is 36 is wrong. So it should be the same. Since it has gone to the next line, it means that the values are same. Only if it were different, it would have gone to the next line. So okay, and then okay, I've asked about the status of the carry flag, so that'll be a bit tougher. So okay, we will skip that for now. I'll see if I have another. Okay. Okay, we'll come back to this question. Okay, I have a question about swap. I have to first clear the responses for that and then post it. Okay, I'll come to that. In the meantime, we'll go and look at a couple of other instructions. We'll look at swap. Okay, before we look at swap, so the next instruction which I wanted to speak about was jump on carry and jump on not carry. So if the carry bit is set, then it will jump. Then it is then it is like you have a carry flag. If the carry flag is set, then it will jump. If the carry flag is not set, it will not jump. So we'll look at a quick demo of that as well. We did move R0 to this, and we move A to something like FF. So now I will do an add A comma R0. We looked at this. So when we add these two, since that's already full, so we will have the carry flag set. So if jump in carry, then I go to carry flag set I cannot use set, so carry flag. So I have carry flag, s jump, carry flag. Okay, and then no carry. NOC is no carry, so it will stay at s jump, no carry. So this is again a trap. So when it comes to this line, it will stay in this line forever. This is like doing a while one loop. Okay, it's a while one loop. So if you do a while one, it will stay on that same line forever. I'll quickly execute it. Oh man, which is I cannot move like that. Okay, move a comma at or not, and I'll put at 35. I'll put a 35f. So and I have move a comma at r naught, so it will fetch whatever is at 35 and then put it. Okay, so I will step r naught. So this will move 35 to r naught. That's done. So then move a comma at r naught. It will move whatever is at the address pointed by r naught, which is 35. So on 35 the value is ff. So it will move ff to a. So you can see that a has become ff. Now I am going to do add a comma r naught. So it will add, and because the value is bigger than whatever value that can be held in the A register, a carry flag is set. So to check whether the carry flag is set or not, I have put a jump on carry flag. So now the carry flag is set. It will go to line 8 and then stay in line 8 forever. I'll do a step. You could find that it didn't go to line 6 and it went to line 8 as such. We'll do another demo of it. I will make 35 as 0. So now what will happen is a comma r naught. Now a is moved with the value 0. When you add 0 comma 35, the carry flag is not set. So since only when carry flag is set, it will go to this 8. Now it will go to instruction 6. And in instruction 6, I have put a while one loop, so it is staying on instruction 6 itself. So that's a quick demo of what I wanted to show with that. Okay. Now there is a swap instruction. So I'm going to the next type of instruction. So that's an instruction called a swap, in which I will if I swap, then it will swap the lower 4 bits with the upper 4 bits. So here I have a swap A. So now the value in A is F0. So if I swap it, then the value in A is F0. Now I am going to execute an instruction called a swap A. So if I swap it, then the value becomes 0F. So it's as good as moving the lower 4 bits to the upper 4 bits and the upper 4 bits to the lower 4 bits. So now let's go back to the question. I have a swap instruction. So the question is that it swaps the lower 4 bits by the upper 4 bits. So the question is, how do you do it other way? If you want to implement a swap instruction using other instructions, how do you do it? We have read about an instruction called as rotate left or rotate right. So with that, will you be able to do it somehow? So that's the question. Go to 4998 and 383 and try to answer that. As usual, I'll start a timer. Okay, thank you. That's good. Okay, in the meantime, while you guys are answering it, I will try to hook up a demo for that. I hope you guys are continuing answering that. Please continue answering. 5 people have answered. I'll for want of time, I'll just go ahead and explain how it is going to work. I have written some piece of code. We will look at how that's going to do. So I'm going to swap. I have moved R0 to 20 and then got the value at address pointed by R0 to A. So I have 0f there. So I will step it. So now A should have a value of 0f. You can see A has a value of 0f. Now I will step again. I am going to execute a swap instruction, which means AC will become F0. AC has become F0. So now I will, if I do another 4 rotates, then it should become the value which it was before the previous rotates. So I will do 4 rotates, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you can see that AC has become the same value which we have set previously. So it was the same FF. So that's as good as rotating it by rotating it through left or right by 4 times. In general, if I want to write it, it is as good as rotating it by an odd multiple of 4 times. So I can as well do it like 12 times, 8 times. Now I have 4, 8 and 12 times. So now we can step through and then see what happens every 4th time. So we will see it was swapped, so it becomes F0. 1, 2, 3, 4. It has become 0f. In the next 4th time, 2, 3, 4. It has become F0 again. And then the next 4th time, it becomes 0f. Okay. So okay, complement instruction will, as you remember, will subtract it from FF and put it. So that's not as good as rotating it by 4 times, and it is not swapping the lower 4 bits and upper 4 bits. If you rotate it an even number of times, you will get the same value. You will not get a swapped value. So it's not rotate by 8 times. It's rotate by odd multiples of 4 times. Okay, that brings us to an end of. Okay, so this instruction I wrote in general so that you can understand it easily, but someone who has learned the loops, we should be able to write it on a loop instead of making it this much times. We should be able to write it on a loop. Like we can move, if you want to rotate it 12 times, we can move A to R0 to be 12, and we will keep decrementing R0 every time, and we will keep the loop running till R0 becomes 0. So if R0 becomes 0, we will come out of the loop. If the R0 is not 0, then we will keep doing the same thing. We can spend time writing a loop like that. I think that's a decent exercise to do. So I will give that a try. So I will move R0, comma, let's say we want to rotate it 8 times. So I'll move R0 to A. So I will do, I'll put a jumper here, starter here, start. I'll rotate it, rotate A. I'll decrement R0. Compare and jump if not equal. R0, comma, 0, 0. It will go to start. If they are equal, which means that R0 is equal to value, then you come to 0. So this is a very loop. This is a very optimized way of writing this, whatever we copy pasted the last time. So we will try to execute that and see if this makes sense. Okay, it says it should have been like this. Okay, I will execute this. Okay, this didn't find anything wrong. So I have moved R0 to 20H and 20H points to 0F. So I have moved, I'll now swap it. So 0F will now become F0. I have moved R0 to 8. So R0 will be 8. So first it will do one rotate. It will rotate by one time and then it will decrement R0. Now you will see that R0 has become 7. Now we'll compare R0 to 0. If they are not equal, then it will go back to start. So you could see that it has gone back to start, and then it will decrement once more and then execute this, and then it's going for the next time. R0 has become 6. It will go back, do it once more, and then it will once again go back. R0 has become 5. So now R0 has become 4. You could see that it was already swapped. So previously it was F0, now it has become 0F. I can keep executing it for the next time. So and then okay, now it has become C3. Now it has become 2. Now it has become 1. Now it has become F0. But the problem which I have done is R0 is 8. I will step. So it has come out of the loop. So I reverted it back to the original value, which was before the swap. So it was originally 0F. So after the swap, it was F0. So executed the loop is 8 times, and then it was again F0. So that's one optimized way of writing the loop as well. And then we also looked at swap instruction and how we can implement swap instructions with the rotate. I hope this acted as a nice recap of all stuffs which we have learned so far. Yeah, we looked at this. Okay, so whatever I try to write as this, I decrement it and then compare and jump if not equal. That I can combine and write as a single instruction like decrement and jump if non-zero. So if you read the instruction manual, you will find out some instructions which can optimize the way in which you are writing a code. So the two instructions can be combined into a single instruction and things like that. So the more we read about the architecture, the more we can write optimized code. So I just wrote this part so that we can go back and look at this and see how optimized this can be. Okay. So we have another 10 to 15 minutes. So what I'm going to do now is look at an demo of a slightly more interesting stuff like interfacing with an external world kind of an application. And there's nothing which I'm going to write new. So I'm just going to take a demo example from this simulator's code, and then we will execute it, and then we will see how it is going to work. I'll take a very simple example. So this part, I think you can download it as a code as well and then put it inside. So this example is going to this is a simulator, so it will not show anything out, but this region is a set of switches, and this region is a set of LEDs. So I've hooked up some so the simulator assumes that there are some LEDs which are connected to this port, and there are some switches which are connected to one port. So what we are trying to do on this code is read the values on P2 in which the switches are connected and then move it to P1. So when you press the switch, an LED there will glow. So that's the demo which we are going to see now. I will instead of stepping through it, I'll just run it through, and then we'll see a real world view of how things is working. So you can see that I'm clicking a switch. This is a switch. So you can assume that it is a real switch. If you are in an electronics lab, it will be like a switch, so you can on the wall switch and things like that, or a button or anything like that. So once you press that, we can write a code. So this is that part of the code which will read the state of the switch and then put it into the LED state. So this is as good as if you want to switch on an LED, you can press the switch. How we have written the code for that? Okay, this is also hooked up to this LCD, and that's why the LCD is also reflecting that. But what we intentionally want to do is to reflect the state of the switch on this LED. So this is one way to do how to do an I think this looks more like an practical thing, the first thing which someone would like to do. On the we can do something like, if you want to turn the LEDs one by one, you can rotate the value on let's say we move 1 to P1 to A, and then we keep rotating the value in that. We can move A comma at or not, and I'll put or not comma 20H. So I'll move, and 20H there is F. So I'll make it 1. So, and then I will rotate A, and then I will move P1 comma A. Let's see what happens. Nothing could happen. Okay, so since it was very quick, you couldn't see the changes on it. So now I have you could see that it has become 80. So only this bit was cleared and every other bit is set. So now I will keep going through it. You will see that the next LED will be off now. Okay, I'll probably do this 1 meg, so it will be easier to look at it. You could see it is changing. Probably what is wrong in this code is that every time it is moving 1 to it. So I shouldn't jump back to start. I shouldn't jump back to start every time. I'll put a loop here, and then I'll jump back to this loop. So now we will see something good, I guess. Yeah, now you could see that one of the LED is turning off. So this is like very close to a serial set lamp which you see there, but writing a program to make it work is one LED is turning off now. So if I make it the other way, then I can make sure that only one LED is turning on, and that goes in a loop. We will try that. So instead of 1 here, I should have FE here. Okay, you could see only one LED is turning on at the time, and then it's going on a loop. So I'm running it continuously. You could see that it is getting updated. So now it doesn't involve the switch. It is just ourselves turning on and off an individual LED at a time. So but now it is doing at a very fast way. So what to make it visual to us, I have reduced the clock to 1 megahertz so that we can look at it visually. So if you really want to do it at which is visible to our eye, you cannot reduce the clock like this. Since it's a simulator, I reduced it. But the actual way will be to use a timer here and change the interval of update at every specific let's say 50 microseconds or 1 second or 2 seconds. So we'll configure the timer like that, and at every time 1 second has gone up, we will get an interrupt from the timer, and based on the timer we should be able to change something on that. Um, so since we haven't covered timers, I think if I just write that code, it will be a bit more complicated to understand. So we'll not do that for the time being. I'll try to we try to do a couple of hands-on. So I will try to see if there is another quick thing which we can which oh yeah, this code, the ramp signal on a DAC output. Um, it's very similar to what we try to do now. Instead of giving it to an LED, we are giving it to an oscilloscope. We are giving it to a DAC, and then we are taking the output of the DAC to an oscilloscope. So if we keep on incrementing a value, then we will see that the value you can see an ramp-like signal. This is what a signal which you have constantly studied on what is that paper called, the signals and systems and things like that. Uh, so so we can do that, or we will skip and see if there is something else we can do. Okay, this is an ADC trigger, uh, and then there is an example for a scanning keypad. Um, this is a very interesting example. How it is going to work is this is how a keypad is scanned. I'll see if I can get an GIF image of an if you look at the code and visualize how it is going to work, it's actually a very interesting way in which this keypad switches work. Yeah, I think this is a nice GIF. I will use it to explain that. Okay, it is connected on something called as a matrix. So this is like okay, I give inputs through this is called as row scan. So every row I will try to give an input after every specific interval of time. So if I want a user, if the user is pressing, usually if you look at this buttons, whatever button which we were working throughout, the button which we work here, there is one button which is connected to one port. So for instance, if you have 8 buttons, we should have 8 ports. But this logic is a very interesting logic in which we will use. Now we have 16 keypads. So we have 16 buttons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. But to scan the 16, we don't need 16 buttons. We will use only 8 pins to scan 16. Previously here, we used 8 pins to scan only 8. Here we are going to scan 16 with 8. How it works is, first, the microcontroller will feed an signal on this line, on this one first pin. So you will the signal will go to all these things which are connected to the first pin, and if this is pressed, this will short this to the 5. So you will see that whatever is being sent on 1 will come down on the 5th. So if it is seen at 5, then it means that whatever is crossed now is what is pressed. I will the next instance, what it will do is it will try to send a signal at this pin. If an user is pressing this button, then you will see that when the microcontroller signal is fed on pin 2, you will see that it is getting reflected on the 7th. So if you see an output on 7, when signal 2 is fed, then it means that he is pressing this button. But in the same time, user is pressing, okay, when you see an output on 7th pin, the same pin, but the microcontroller, our code is feeding signal on the 3rd, then it means that he is pressing this pin. So even though you see a signal on the same 7th pin of the microcontroller, depending upon where the microcontroller is sending out the data, we should be able to identify where which of the pads is pressed by the user. So this is how most of our touch-based technologies, like the touch screen of your laptop, computer screens, all work on something on a concept which is very similar to this. So I thought I'll take some time to explain this concept, even though this looks a bit of an complicated algorithm. So there are a lot of variations to it. You can reduce power through this. You can reduce accuracy based on that, and a lot of things on this. So this is a very interesting algorithm. I think you should go ahead and look at it. So this is instead of looking at it on a one dimension, now we are going to look at it at 2 dimensions. If you want to do gesture recognition, probably it goes into 3 dimension and things like that. So yeah, with that note, I think I can close down the session for today, and that brings us to the end of the 3-day session which we had planned to speak about microcontrollers. I'm sure I at least on the 3 hours whatever we could cover, I'm sure we should have done enough justice about that. We can spend another 10 minutes probably discussing on any questions you have, anything which you want to speak about, anything you want to ask, any feedback you want to give on the class structure, things which should have been covered, which could have been left out or anything like that. Please feel free to speak up now. At least on the end of the session, someone in the class, if I can hear, then I'll at least be guaranteed that all people who are in the class are not fake and not robots, and there is really people who attended the class. I mean, consent. We write a lot of these kind of web-based chat applications in which we can create robots which can speak on their own, which can look like, which can give a Tamil name to it, and seems like I'm taking a class, but actually there is no people. But at least the quiz should have made sure that some people is there. So I know 10 people are in the class, but 60 I doubt. Yeah, that brings me to the end of the session. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I can give.
Students, if you have any questions, kindly ask the questions now.
Yeah, and my mail ID is here. I can put it on the chat window as well. You can reach out to me if you have any questions. Oh, someone has asked for a feedback form. I'm not sure. I don't have a feedback form with me as such.
So
Probably I should
that we will
create that.
provide it.
Okay.
No, sir,
Okay,
we
ma'am.
will provide it to the students.
Okay, ma'am. Thanks. If there is any interesting feedback, please let me know as well, ma'am. That
Students, if any one of you want to give the feedback, you can unmute your mic and give the feedback now. At least one from the all. One on behalf of the entire second year students.
Good evening, students. I am Kamal Selvi, HOD speaking. You can just chat, no, in the chat box, whatever feedback you want to give. Hello, Sumitra. Hello.
Ma'am, you are audible only.
Yeah.
You can point out one student that they can tell, no, they can chat in the box.
Students, at least you give your feedback in the chat box.
Someone said a very interesting session. Thank you. Thanks a lot for that.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Mona Devi, you can give the comment, no? Gunachandran.
Oh.
It's quite useful.
Suresh said the session is quite useful and difficult to understand. Okay, that's too bad, man. Telling it at the last day. Would have told me earlier. ஏதாச்சும் பண்ணியிருந்திருக்கலாம்.
What Ravi Suresh? Need more sessions. Oh, that's what. He's predicting that he needs more sessions. That's what. Within the short period, he could not able to cope up with the topics.
Nice. Thanks.
Girls side, Mona Devi, you can give the comment, no?
Yes, ma'am. Just a second, ma'am.
You just to give the feedback. Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, a lot of people are typing on the chat box, so that's good. Yeah,
they are waiting for upcoming sessions, for your upcoming sessions on feedback as well.
Oh, Gautam, that's nice, man. I couldn't think of a video example as such. Okay, I'll go ahead. At least I'll keep that in mind. I'll keep doing videos, at least smaller GIFs, GIF images and things like that. I'll do it. Thanks for the feedback.
Okay, sir. Good evening, students. I would like to thank our session speaker, Ganesh Kanda. Already in this lockdown period, he has helped us a lot. Even he conducted one webinar. One webinar also, he helped us a lot. And in this session also, I hope that you had a very interactive session with him, because just like that, he won't give the theory part and all. He always used to give the practical sessions, that whatever is going on, you can able to visualize in the screen itself. In that way only, he will be handling the session. So if time permits, or if you are requiring any more that is topics related to this that is this webinar, then we can arrange for the webinar also, because someone has asked they need more session also, and waiting for the upcoming session also. So I hope that the students for the past 5 days, you had the session, as well as this is the last session for you. Anyway, why we are conducting all these things, you know that in this lockdown period, not only you have to concentrate on the academics, you have to enhance your knowledge in the latest techniques, as well as your practical knowledge must be sharpened, so that you can do the projects whenever you are getting into the college. That's what we are handling all these sessions. And on behalf of our management and our department and our organizers who has started the initiative for this webinar and for the whole session, they have conducted in a very smooth manner this webinar. So I would like to thank the organizers as well as the session speakers and the students for the successful conduction of this. Thank you once again, sir, for this session, that is for this special session. And Sumitra, if you want to conclude, you can conclude, and you can give the feedback to the students.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. It's my pleasure to propose the vote of thanks. Again, on behalf of management, principal, sir, department, and the HOD ma'am, I extend a hearty vote of thanks to all the speakers of the 1-week training program on design of electronics and circuits for electrical engineers. Special thanks to the speaker, Mr. Ganesh Kanda, and KV Raghavendran, and also our department staff member, Sai Kumar, sir, who showered us with their technical presentation and also spent their valuable time in spite of the busy schedule. I am very grateful to our HOD ma'am for providing encouragement and support, and also for providing our opportunity for conducting this 1-week training. As no program can become successful with a single person, so I extend my sincere thanks to all my second year counseling staff members. Without them, which is not possible for me to conduct this training program as a successful one. And last but not the least, I thank all the student participants of second year triple students for making this session a wonderful one. Thank you, one and all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
okay. Students, you can now submit your feedback by filling the form which is given in the chat box. You just go to the link and submit your feedback. Once, if you have submitted the feedback, you can leave the session.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm signing off.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye.